Thanks so much to our title sponsor, Visit Bloomington. We would not be here without them. Check them out, visitbloomington.com.
Hey, say, honey, let's go out to eat. Relieve our culinary duties. With all these restaurants to sweep us off our feet, they're bound to turn us into foodies. Oh, no dishes, no dishes, no dishes. We'll have a bottle of wine, relax and have a good time. No dishes, no dishes.
Through the forest, through the trees. Pause that episode of Gilmore Girls you're watching. We're here with Forrest Gilmore of Beacon Inc. What's up, dude?
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being here. Get to see you around quite a bit. But we also, earlier this year in January, we got to judge the chili cook-off together.
We did. I'm hoping they're going to do that again. I haven't heard if they're doing that again.
Yeah, so I'm on the Freezefest committee, and they've been, United Way was going to do it, but they've got another arm, I forget what it is, that they might take it over. So the chili cook-off is very much in limbo.
Oh, all right.
I know, but we'll see. Hopefully by the time this airs, it's on. But either way, check out Freezefest.
Yeah, Freezefest is amazing. Really cool.
I think that was the most extended time we ever got to spend together, and we got to eat chili. So now every time I see you, I crave chili.
Right, chili. Time for a cook-off.
Dude, I love it. There's worse things to be associated with. Right?
Absolutely.
So you're here. Obviously, we want to talk about Beacon Inc. and all the amazing work you guys do in this community. I feel like it definitely, people know about people experiencing homelessness, substance issues, mental health issues, and they know that there's some work being done, but I don't know if they know the full extent of all the stuff that you guys do. So
that's common. Yeah, where people don't know, they think they see a few things and think that's what we do, and so much of what we do is so much deeper and more intense. So looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, sure. Well, first off, I think probably the most well-known is Shalom Center. Can you kind of tell us about what Shalom Center is and what its purpose is?
Yeah, sure. Shalom Center is where we started. It's the first program we've ever run. We started in First United Methodist Church about, it's almost 24 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So close to a quarter century. And the church there, they saw some people that were just experiencing homelessness and had nowhere to go during the day. At that time there was only one overnight shelter, and it was opened at 5 and closed at 7 or so in the morning. So they saw some folks that, as they were leaving the shelter, had nowhere to go, and so they thought, what can we do to kind of create some space for people who are experiencing homelessness during the day? Not only safety but dignity. Create a place that honored their bodies, but also just their inherent worth and dignity, and created a space with some newspapers and a room and some telephones and some bagels, and kind of went from there. And we've been growing from there as a day center, a resource center to help people who are experiencing homelessness. Most people who are experiencing homelessness, when we think about it, we often think about where people sleep in the overnight shelter kind of idea, but people do the work of getting out of homelessness during the day. And that's always what Shalom has been. It's been that place during the day to help people while they're awake and can do the work of getting better. They can do it right there. And so that started with the most basics, like laundry and showers and ID and storage and things like that. But over the years, we got more and more skilled at helping people move into housing and go from there. So that's the real start, from just the most basic survival skill stuff way back when to now. Shalom is kind of still the hub, but so much of our other work now kind of starts at Shalom and moves from there.
Was that first location so it started at the church, but then was the first center they set up where it is now?
No, we were in the church for about 10 years, and we started in a small room up there and then moved to their kind of basement. And there was a kitchen there and some other services. And then we also started partnering with First Christian Church, which was just around the corner. And so we did our casework out of their office, as well as we had showers over there. And we've even done some other things. We had a legal clinic at Trinity Episcopal. We had a family center at First Presbyterian. So a lot of things were happening in local churches downtown until we made the move to 620 South Walnut about in 2010. So about 13, 14 years ago.
Okay, yeah. So it sounds about as long as I've been down here, because I feel like as long as I can remember, it's been right there.
Yeah, and that's about as long as I've been with the organization. I started 6 months before the move. So
read my next question.
Yeah,
because I know I didn't give you the proper introduction. It's Reverend Forrest Gilmore.
It is. Yeah, which we use on in fancy moments, but the rest of the time is no big deal.
I don't know if we ever qualify this as a fancy moment, so that makes me feel
yeah, absolutely. This is conversational.
yeah, for sure.
When I'm asking for big money, then I use the title.
Yeah, when you need to really play it up, be like when you do like Your Honor.
Exactly. When
So how did you get involved with Shalom? Were you already living in town, or did you move here to work with Shalom? I guess what's your backstory?
Yeah, so I'm a Unitarian minister, Unitarian Universalist minister, and served churches for more than a decade. Thought I'd do that for the rest of my life, and then for family reasons ended up moving to Bloomington, and moved here in a very challenging way with no job, no kind of background, just a little bit of money in the bank. Actually, it was 2009 when all the horrible foreclosures were happening. So honestly went through my own kind of housing experience, never was at risk of homelessness, I have stable family, and so ultimately could have relied on them if we had to, but we couldn't sell our home in New Jersey. And so where we moved from, where I was serving a church out there, and almost foreclosed, and it was a pretty scary time there for a while. So while my experience is not anywhere near what my clients' experiences are, the guests of our center and our work, there was, it did start with a housing crisis for me, and kind of trying to be unable making this move because we had family needs to do it, and then couldn't sell the house in New Jersey, and then couldn't pay the mortgage, and it was scary times. And
yeah, that's tough. Yeah. But like you said, I've had that thought, if I really ever screwed up, like go live with my brother, go live with my sister, go live with my dad.
Exactly.
So that's not everyone obviously has that safety net.
Yep.
That's there to catch them.
Absolutely.
So how did you're here, you're in this predicament. Did you get immediately, and Shalom was your first job in Bloomington?
It was, yeah. I was. I came out here trying to create something. A ministry degree is not the most marketable degree out there. Yeah. So I was trying to figure out. I was thinking about maybe could I build a counseling business, and and ended up doing some like guest speaking and doing some weddings and officiating some weddings to kind of make ends meet a little bit, but wasn't getting really reliable income that way. So I thought I'd try and get a at least a part-time job somewhere to kind of tide things over. And while I was looking, I thought I didn't have much use of my time, so I thought I'd volunteer. And so I was said to someone, I think I'm going to go check out what's going on at the local homeless shelters and see if I can volunteer for that. And about a week later, a job notice showed up in the paper, and it was for this part-time job as the assistant director of Shalom Center, and I applied, and somehow they actually hired me and started working there. That turned quickly into full-time work, and I gave up a lot of the other stuff, the littler things, because this really felt like a passion. And about a year in, the executive director retired, and they asked me if I wanted to take over, and I agonized over it because I saw how hard he worked and how difficult it was, but ultimately said yes. And I've been doing that now. Well, I've been in January. It'll be 14 years that I'm with Shalom. So
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So in those 14 years, we talked about a little bit. You guys have grown from just a Shalom to, I feel like it was just in the last couple of years, to Beacon.
Yeah.
That has all these different organizations under its umbrella.
Yeah.
Don't miss Constellation Stage and Screen's upcoming production of Webster's Bitch. On stage January 25th through February 11th at the Ted Jones Playhouse. When their editor-in-chief gets caught using some unexpected profanity, the employees of Webster's Dictionary find themselves at the center of an internet uprising. A play about the power of words and the people who define them. See Webster's Bitch on stage January 25th through February 11th in downtown Bloomington. Find tickets at cconstellation.org. What are some of the other things that Beacon's doing outside of just Shalom Center?
Yeah, we had a real conscious decision in 2013, 11, 12, 13. We were early in my tenure where we were deciding what do we want to do next in terms of how do we want to move and what kind of way do we want to help. And we thought about, do we just do more emergency services? Do we become an overnight shelter? Do we try and do stuff like that? And we decided at that point that we really wanted to focus on solutions. And so we started by investing in housing. And that began with a kind of a community partnership to build one of the very first housing first permanent supportive housing facilities in the state of Indiana.
Wow.
And we ended up doing that. And that was a 25 apartment facility for people with disabilities, long-term homeless, for chronically homeless folks. Those are folks who honestly, they generally die on the streets if we don't intervene. They don't rescue themselves. Their situations and conditions are so awful that they generally die. And so the average age of death for a chronically homeless person is about 47. So I'm 52 now, so I often think about that, how I've lived longer than most long-term homeless folks already.
That's a insane statistic.
Yeah.
I never, that's such a low.
It's incredible, right? Yeah, we often think, a good life is 70 plus, or even more, 80 now. And, but those folks, their struggles are so massive that they often die pretty young. And so we intervened with that kind of program. And again, it was a community effort to kind of build this. And we started this permanent supportive housing program. And that's grown over the years, but that's been the core of where we started to focus on housing over emergency services. We really wanted solutions, and what's the solution to homelessness? It's right in the word is homes, homefulness, I guess. I don't know. But we expanded that way. The next year, we also added something called rapid rehousing, which is focusing on people on the other side of the spectrum, people who are working families, but are generally just struggling to make ends meet and can't kind of pay that startup costs that are really expensive. Like we just helped a family just recently move into a home, and we paid, I think, something like $3,200 in security deposit. That was their security deposit in order to move. And what person has $3,200 just lying around, in savings so that they can move in and get a security deposit to move into a place? But that's what this place required for them to get out of homelessness. And so we, through what we call this rapid rehousing program, we're able to help do that and help them move in and stabilize and then kind of improve their lives from there.
Yeah, I've heard about, I don't know if we have them here locally. It was another thing I had been listening to where there's programs set up to keep people from losing their housing situation because it's easier to catch it there than once they have become homeless and need to find a place. Is that anything that you guys work on?
Yeah, we call that homeless prevention, and we definitely try and help on that end as well. And it's interesting because there are ways to intervene in that way, and sometimes called diversion. And that's really important. And I think our community's working on maybe doing that better than we've done. It's always, if you can help somebody stay in their home, it's better than having them lose it and then starting from scratch. But it's often hard because many people who we experience in homelessness, they come to the social service system, if you will, like really late in the game. So it's not their first stop. They become homeless and they go and visit a homeless shelter. They use all the resources that they have first. So that's where they use all the family resources they can. So if their family supports them, for a little while, they take advantage of that and they try to do that. But sometimes that runs out. There's also, they might have some money saved, so they'll spend it on motel rooms or something like that, and then that runs out. So often when we see folks who are homeless, we don't see them until they've exhausted all those resources already. So they've been homeless for a while. And then when we encounter them, it's too late to kind of save them from save their home. We have to start from scratch to get them back in.
Yeah. Are you guys all privately funded, or is there any governmental assistance?
Yeah, we're a mix. Most of our emergency services are community funded by, individual donors primarily, also faith communities, corporations and things, and some local grants and things like that. But most of our housing programs are federal funding, federal grants. The feds have done a good job in investing in some housing solutions. There's always need for more, but what they've invested in has helped us to really house people.
Does so we had Carrie Thompson on here. We talked about Housing First, a lot of those things.
Yeah.
New administrations, does that affect you guys very much, or?
We'll see. It's early. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I mean, this will be my third mayor.
Okay.
And so Carrie's, I think, coming out strong in terms of her support of solutions for homelessness and kind of working on that level. So, but this issue is big. It's huge, and we can impact it locally, but we also, I think it's a national issue and a national crisis, and so we need to think about it nationally too.
Yeah. I mean, do you find? I mean, I know one of the things people always say, like, other places are shipping people here. Is that something that you find rings true, and that Bloomington as a community is trying to help more people than we have resources for?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and certainly not everyone who is here homeless became homeless in Monroe County or in Bloomington, for sure. What we know a couple of things. One is that we live in a state that has very few shelters at all, and so if you look at all of the donut counties around us, just as an example, Martinsville has a family shelter, and that's it. And Owen and Lawrence has a family shelter, women's and children's shelter, and has a winter shelter for men for part of the year, and that's about it. Other than what's in Monroe County. So, and that's, and the next major shelters, Jeffersonville, and then Terre Haute, and then Indianapolis. And so what we've done as a community is we don't have all these neighboring communities. Like, sometimes people ask me, do we have enough shelter in Bloomington? And my answer is often yes. Our problem in Bloomington is not that we don't have enough shelter for people. It's that it's housing. Our problem is housing. But if you ask me if the neighboring communities, if you ask me if Spencer needs a shelter, or Linton needs a shelter, or Jasper needs a shelter, or even Columbus, needs a more significant shelter than when they got what they got, those I would say wholeheartedly yes. And that's part of the problem with this migration issue, is that the communities around us are not lifting up what they need to help the folks that live in their own communities.
Wow. Yeah, that's tough. I mean, it's already a hard enough problem as it is, let alone when you're trying to support an entire region as a smaller.
It's very unusual that people want to actually move when they get into these kind of struggles. Like, they have friends, they have family, they have connections. They don't want to leave those friends and families and connections. And so, but sometimes they have no choice.
Yeah, because if there's nothing there, what are you going to do? Like, they might hate Bloomington, but be like, well, it's where I got to go to have a roof.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. What about, we talked about a little bit, I mistook. I was thinking it was Fred's Kitchen, but it's Phil's Kitchen.
It's Phil's Kitchen.
Yeah. What is,
yeah.
Can you tell us about what the work Phil's Kitchen does?
Yeah, Phil's Kitchen is named after a long-term supporter named Phil Saunders, and great guy. And this is perfect for this, but it's, we provide meals Monday through Friday, breakfast and lunch Monday through Friday. And we have a great chef and a chef's assistant do some wonderful work providing food for people, free to everyone. Anyone can come in. And one of the things that we're really proud of is that people really like our food. They think it's good.
Awesome.
That it tastes good, that they enjoy it. They're homemade meals. They're not out of a box, and they're not, or not out of a shipping container or whatever. They're made from scratch, and they're really good. We have a great chef who does a wonderful job.
Yeah, well, I feel like everyone, no matter what situation you're in, you shouldn't be deprived of tasty food.
Absolutely. I mean, our staff eats there, our volunteers eat there, our clients eat there. And that's a big part of our philosophy, of course, is that everybody eats, right? And so there's sometimes people like, I don't want to take food away. It's like, no, we all eat. We all need to eat. And so food is for everybody.
So is that down at the Shalom Center?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's within. Do you guys partner or work much with Community Kitchen?
We do, yeah. One of the great things that Community Kitchen does for our overnight shelter, which is called Friend's Place, is they provide dinner for there. So, and we've had a relationship with Community Kitchen, and this is something that I love about our community, and is that we try not to duplicate each other's services. So for a long time, we haven't moved into dinner because Community Kitchen is serving dinner. So they provide the dinner for our community, and we provide breakfast and lunch, and together we make it happen. And so one of the great ways that partnership continues is they bring dinners over to our center, to our overnight shelter every night, and 6 days a week. So
wow,
that's really
great.
It's really great.
The Bloomington Town Planner is a community calendar owned and published by local residents John and Sharon Martin. Mailed out to Bloomington homes in December of each year, it features school schedules and community events. And don't forget the coupons at the bottom of the calendar. They'll save you money and help you decide on the next restaurant or retailer to check out here in the Bloomington area. Town Planner also has an online calendar which will be found at townplanner.com. Make sure to sign up for their weekly e-newsletter so you can stay on top of all the fun events going on around town. Do you have other community partners that are really kind of helping on these fronts that aren't directly with Beacon?
Yeah, not all with food, but Hoosier Hills Food Bank is a huge partner as far as food goes. They do a great job at supplying food, a lot of very low cost food, food that's some they purchase, but a lot of it is donated and then repurposed, and so we're able to get food from them. They do a lot with good veggies as well, so that's pretty cool, and fresh stuff, and so we like that. And they do it at a cost that's way below anybody. So our cost per meal, I think, is if I got to remember it right, but I think we're something like $1.25 per meal.
Wow,
and that's a big part of. Because of Hoosier Hills Food Bank and the amount of support that they provide in terms of just food and the very low cost that they're able to provide that food for us, and good food, not junk. They provide. There's some junk in there too, because everybody loves some junk. But
need a fruit roll-up
I think there was cinnamon toast crunch for breakfast this morning. So people.
Hey, you need it. Yeah.
Everybody loves good stuff. But yeah, they give us a lot of really great food. So those are just two of the food partners. They're the two major food partners.
What about non-food partners?
Yeah, so HealthNet is one of our big ones. HealthNet used to be called Volunteers in Medicine, and they merged into what's called a federally qualified health center, and became a subsidiary, I guess, of HealthNet, which is an organization based out of Indy, and they provide insurance. They provide healthcare to people regardless of their insurance status. No matter what, you get healthcare, and they do a wonderful job. So, and they have a street outreach team that regularly comes to our center and works with our folks as well, our clients, both at the center and outside the center. So that's a great partnership. They also work at Crawford Apartments and are working. They're actually just starting that, where they're bringing a mobile health van down to Crawford. And they have a psychiatric nurse practitioner on their staff, as well as a nurse practitioner, and so they can do general health and psychiatric care for the people that we work with, which is awesome. It's great partnership. So
yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, really good stuff from them. They're fantastic. We work with the VA to help veterans. One of the cool things we're doing as a community right now is bringing a lot of different organizations together to target veterans homelessness, and we're trying to bring veterans homelessness down to zero. It's a community commitment, and right now I think the last thing we're down to right now, we have about 12 veterans in our community that are homeless, and we want to get that as close to zero as we can. So partnering with the VA is a big part of that, of course, and so that's a great partnership.
Yeah. Do you have a rough idea how large our homeless community is?
Yeah, we have an annual count called the point in time count, which gives us a good sense of approximately how many people are experiencing homelessness in the county, and it varies between 320 and 340, and we've seen that number fluctuate between 320 and 340 since going back to about 2015. So it's stayed relatively stagnant in terms of the numbers over that. So it's not exploding like people are talking about. It's actually pretty much the same numbers going back almost a decade.
Well, on that note, I was going to ask, what do you think is the biggest misconception that the community maybe has about people in these situations?
I mean, that's a huge one right there, right?
It is exploding and it's getting it's the same it's been for 8 years. Yeah.
One thing that I think is a really interesting misconception is what people think is the cause of homelessness. And people often talk about substance use or mental illness as the cause. And it's interesting because most people with substance use issues, most people with severe mental illness are housed. And so, and when we look across the country and we look at homeless populations, and we look at kind of all the factors that might be causing a higher homeless population here or there, or a lower population here or there, when we look at mental illness, there's no correlation between the amount of mental illness in a community and the homeless population. There's also no correlation between the amount of people who have an addiction problem and the amount of homelessness in a community. There's even no correlation. In fact, there's a negative correlation between the amount of people in poverty and homelessness. And so there's one thing that repeatedly, and also the generosity of a community or the services. People often say your services make homelessness worse in our community. There's no connection between homeless size and quality of services or amount of services.
Is the line of thinking there that people choose to be homeless because they know that there's these services they can rely on?
Makes it easy. I guess it makes it easier, or it brings them to town. Those kind of stories. And but one of the things that's really the only thing that correlated with increased homelessness were housing factors. So, and mainly, what's the level of rent? So places with higher median rent had worse housing problems, homelessness problems, and people and communities that had very low vacancy rates had higher homelessness rates. So those housing factors are what creates homelessness. And so when people talk about why do we have a big homeless problem in that, those are the reasons. We have high rent and we have a low vacancy, a low number of places available for people. And that's what's causing our homeless problem here. And that's a big kind of, I think I kind of find that a bit of a myth buster.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I did it at the beginning of this sit down, was lumping those together.
Yeah, it's certain. I mean, there's certainly people with severe mental illness that are homeless, people with severe addictions that are homeless. But the vast majority of people with those problems are housed. And so, where we see big homeless problems is where we have those housing problems.
Yeah. Well, like with any group of people, whether, you're going to have individuals that are experiencing this or that. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's because of any other defining factor. It's just like you get a large enough group of people, whether they're unhoused, housed, different races or anything, you're going to have people with mental health issues in each group, people with substance abuse issues in each group.
Absolutely.
It doesn't, just because you see a homeless person yelling, screaming, maybe going through some mental stuff doesn't mean that that's why they're in that position.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's no doubt that that's a challenge for them that would help them do better if they can help overcome those things. But at the core of homelessness is the housing market. Is how rough is it to be to have housing in a community? And our community it's rough.
Yeah. Are we still the highest in the state? Do you know?
Yeah,
I know usually it's us or West Lafayette.
Yep. Cost of living and housing costs we're at or near the top all the time. Yeah. So both of those things are really tough on our community.
So you're focusing on solutions. What do you see as a solution?
Yeah, it's tough, and I don't mean to be trite about it, but the community, it's hard that the community has to make some sacrifices in order to do it. And I think there are two key ways, and one's going to get me in trouble, but I might as well talk about it at least, which is that I can't remember the exact number, but it's something like 78% of our land that's designated for housing in the country is designated exclusively and only for single family homes. And so the vast majority of our land across the country that's dedicated where you can build a home, you can only build a single family home. And so when you're in a community, especially a city where population's tight and you have housing issues, you're building the type of housing that houses the least number of people. And so just that alone is hugely impactful. And we used to have there used to be a time where we would use zoning laws to kind of say, well, we'll do housing over here and we'll have business over here and maybe government over here or whatever. But we didn't go into like, okay, in housing, let's break it down so you can only have this type of housing here and you can only have that type of housing here and only that type of housing here. We didn't do that in the past, and we've been doing that for the last 40 or 50 years. And there's a lot of complicated reasons for it, including a long history of connected. Those laws are often connected to increasing civil rights freedoms for people of color, for African Americans in particular, in the civil rights movement. They correlated with that, where communities got afraid of having people of color in their neighborhoods. And so zoning laws intentionally or unintentionally created segregation. So these are big issues, obviously. And so I maybe, again, get myself a little bit in trouble. But those are the things that really are at the core of one side of the housing problem. The other thing is that we've just stopped investing in housing pretty significantly. In the early 80s, we cut the HUD budget by 70% in like just a few years, drastic cut. And we went from having, safe, affordable, widespread housing for people to situations where often our housing was so poorly funded that you can't fix the elevator or pay the trash bill, and so suddenly public housing became something that was really negative and kind of awful. And so when you say we, are you talking nationwide? That's it, yeah. Exactly, yeah. And so we're in a position where we're not properly funding housing for people at the lower end of the spectrum. That's safe and decent. Clean and respectful, and place that people can, advance their lives from. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad you shared, because it's truths aren't always convenient. They are. Sometimes you need to just say what needs to be said. And this is gonna be a new phrase. No dishes. Like you're just, you're not holding back. Yeah, no dishes. Like yeah, we're gonna just take a hard turn one way or the other. We're just gonna start. That's tackling. A no dishes kind of comment right there. It's like, man, did you watch how he went full no dishes on him? Yeah. He didn't hold back. That's 5 on the no dishes scale. Yeah, it's like that's 5 plates and 3 bowls. Right. Season 5 of the No Dishes podcast is brought to you by VisitBloomington.com. VisitBloomington.com is the best resource for restaurant and culinary information, special events, fun activities, places to stay, and more in our area. We share a similar mission here on the No Dishes podcast of highlighting local businesses and the people who make our community unique. We can't thank them enough for hopping on board. Check them out at VisitBloomington.com to easily plan your next meal, visit, or night out on the town.
So tell us about the new project that's going over there by Crescent Donut.
Yeah. So we're just getting started, but so it's a couple years away. But we're working on building a new facility that brings together our overnight shelter and our day center, and adds housing to our community. So that's what we're really excited about. And
Great.
And a couple of key things in each of those things that we're really excited about. The housing, of course, is always really exciting. 25 new apartments, 20 for people with disabilities, like we talked about earlier. And then another 5 that are going to be work exchange apartments where people work on the property and in the neighborhood to kind of work on maintenance and cleaning and support for the neighborhood and kind of things like that, just to have a positive impact and make things make our space extra clean, and also really help with the neighborhood and deal with some of the issues that sometimes we can have with homeless shelters in the neighborhood, and just try and mitigate some of that stuff with just being on top of things and taking care of stuff. And then in our overnight shelter, we're moving away from a dormitory kind of model to individual rooms, and I'm very excited about that. And just think that's a real improvement in just the quality of care that people can have, just a dignity thing. You have more privacy, you have more safety for your things, more protection. So that's I think that'll be a big improvement. And right now our overnight shelter is we call it Friend's Place, is the only shelter in our county for only emergency shelter for women. And so we've expanded that up as a recent other shelter for women in our community closed for funding reasons. It's always possible, you can always close. People forget sometimes our programs, if we don't raise enough money, we can close. But we're the only shelter now that shelters women. We shelter men and women and gender non-binary folks, cis and transgender men and women and non-binary folks. And so we're going to specifically with this new site, in addition to the individual rooms, really work on the gender binary thing, because I think that's really important, that we find ways that people who are transgender or gender non-binary feel safe in shelters. Transgender folks in particular experience extraordinarily high percentages of homelessness, and just a great deal of threat to their existence. And so creating an extra safe space for them is really valuable and important. So I'm excited about that. And then the day center is going to be real service heavy. Like, I'm really excited about that. We've got HealthNet's going to have a clinic on site. We're very excited. We're working with, hopefully with Centerstone to have them operate significantly out of an office there. We're even talking to the police department and having their downtown resource officers maybe have an office out of the center.
Wow.
So some cool, really cool partnerships that I'm looking forward to. But we're also going to emphasize employment in the new facility. So we've got the work exchange apartments. We'll have a training kitchen in our kitchen so we can teach people to train, get them Serve Safe certified. Yeah. And we'll have an employment kind of coordinator who will help, train people and help get them get them job ready, and also provide support for them when they're on the job. And one of the things we want to do is kind of create a situation where we can kind of vet people for employment. And so when employers like, Chocolate Moose or something comes to us and says, hey, we'd really love to help out and see if we can house some folks who are struggling with, homelessness, who can you send us? We can say, well, this person and this person have shown that they'll do a good job for you. And so you can take a risk here and give them a job, and we think it's more likely that it's going to work out for you than not. So that's one thing we're hoping to kind of do with the new facility as well.
That's great. We've had a lot of luck in Brown County just on work release. Mm-hmm. Not quite the same, but again, you're kind of a risk.
Absolutely.
And it's our current GM and we had a past GM that both came through us through that.
Wow, that's amazing.
And they just come in and they kick ass, and they're just great people who made mistakes and have found a new path and
Right
are
on.
crushing it. Yeah,
Right on. No dishes, man.
Yeah, yeah.
5 stars. So there you
Yeah,
go.
no, so that's it's really cool. So I love to hear that that's going to be happening over here. I could see a ton of pros and just that approach to it. Like, we could. I've seen this guy's knife skills. Like,
right?
Like he's going to be a line.
Exactly. Yeah. And we want to be a support for the neighborhood too. So sometimes the neighbors might need somebody to shovel a walk or mow a lawn or something like that, I hope what we'll be able to do is have people that they can call over and be like, yep, we can send so and so over and they can come help you do that.
That's super cool.
So be a positive influence on the neighborhood as well as supporting the folks we're working with to do well.
Yeah. Did you guys, was it more recently that there maybe was a hurdle to get everything finally cleared to go ahead with that location through other surrounding businesses or the Prospect Hill neighborhood? Yeah,
it's an intense process. And we had to go through what's called the Board of Zoning Appeals, which is the very first step. Finding a property at all in the city that allowed homeless shelters at all and supportive housing at all was a challenge.
I can only imagine. Yeah.
And but wherever it's allowed at all, it's what's called a conditional use, and that's just basically we have to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals and demonstrate why this conditional use should be approved. And so that's what we had to do. And in order to get ready for that, we had to do lots of communications with the neighbors and with government officials and with other folks, local businesses and things like that, just to make sure they were aware of the project, they could have input into the project, that they could feel good about it and feel comfortable and safe with what we're trying to do. And that process was pretty amazing, actually. We interviewed over 60 people in the community. Wow. And lots of neighbors, went to a ton of meetings, had a big public meeting where 60, 70 people showed up to that public meeting. And then we had, of course, the meeting before the Board of Zoning Appeals, which we were very fortunate it went through on the first round. So my understanding is that doesn't always happen. So really grateful for, I think, all of that process that we did leading up to that point got us to have a successful meeting with them.
Yeah, so we've been able to talk about it with a good amount of certainty. Are there any other roadblocks left, or is it, where you're good to go? You have the property, you can start building and make it happen?
There are a lot. But truthfully, the big one's going to be money. And it's going to be an expensive project. And so we've raised a significant amount of money through grants and such to get the early funding, but we're heading our way into a capital campaign in the community where we're going to be looking to the community to help us raise somewhere between $3 and $5 million. And we're working towards that, just getting started to start doing some of the behind the scenes asks of our major donors and then expanding from there. So, but that's going to be the big lift. There's a lot of other things too that are going to be difficult, but that BZA was the first big lift, and then raising this additional money is going to be the next big lift.
Yeah, I saw you just sent an email about someone was matching up to a certain amount if you donated.
Yeah. That was for our Giving Tuesday. We just had a big giving.
Okay, I can remember what it was. I was like, oh, that's great. Yeah. Because you feel better when you donate money and you know that it got doubled.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And there's somebody out there that's saying, I'm willing to give this kind of money. It's like, oh, well, maybe I should do that too.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not alone.
Looking to embrace a sober lifestyle or cut back on your alcohol intake? No Buzz Bottles is here for you. Featuring alcohol-free beer, wine, and spirits, there's no need to feel left out at your next get-together. Plus, you'll feel a lot better and be a lot more productive the next day. Locally owned and operated, No Buzz Bottles has a wide variety of offerings, including alternatives for rosé, gin, rum, seltzers, and more. Best of all, they have free local delivery on all orders. Check them out today at nobuzzbottles.com. So I was going to wait, but it's kind of a good timing. If someone wants to donate or help, how do they go about doing so?
Yeah, great. I mean, the easiest way is through our website, which is beaconinc.org, beaconinc.org. And just go there, and there's a big donate button, big donut. No dishes, man. No dishes, man. And so there's a big donate button in the corner, and that takes you to where you need to go. that also gives you instructions if you don't want to use a credit card, through PayPal or something. You can also send us a check. All the information's there on the website right there.
I liked it was very clear, because there's been other things I've donated to that almost try to get you to not realize you're doing a monthly donation.
Oh my gosh.
But what you guys went through, it was very clear. Like, is this one time or is this monthly? And nice. I don't know. Nothing's worse when you're going to try to help with something and then they're like trying to pull one over on you.
Yeah.
What was the service that you use? Because whatever,
it's PayPal actually.
Was it just PayPal?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was. Yep. Maybe I was thinking of something else.
Well, if you're talking about the donation button from the Giving Tuesday,
was it like butter?
It was givebutter.com.
Thank you. I knew I was like, it was something to do with
That's
butter.
another food related item. Givebutter.com.
We've got donuts. We've got butter.
That's a no dishes type website.
ServeSafe.
Yeah, we're racking it up. We're all kinds of food related stuff today.
Absolutely, man. One of the things I wanted to ask about. So I'm a PK. I'm a preacher's kid. Both of my brother-in-laws are pastors, preachers, pastors. Did you grow up in a Christian household and always kind of knew this was kind of your calling, what you wanted to do? As far as just being a reverend?
Well, it was a roundabout journey, but I grew up Catholic, actually. I grew up in New York State and in the kind of New York City metro area, and grew up Irish, Italian, Catholic was my family background, and so the church was really important, particularly to my parents. But as I grew up, they weren't. It wasn't as important to how I was raised. So I actually went through communion, confirmation, kind of, and then became unchurched for a while. But in my teen years, but I was really, really inspired by Jesus's teachings about poverty and the poor and loving your neighbor, and that's always been huge for me. And I got Christmas time was like this time of hope when love can enter the world and kind of thing, and it made me think, can we do this all year round, and so that was always really big. I was a big fan of It's a Wonderful Life, and he was in. I think back now and it's like, oh, George Bailey was in housing. That's what he did. Yeah. He was helping house people and providing homes for people, and so I really connected with that way young. But so I had a strong kind of social justice kind of direction, which is very much tied to spirituality and a sense of this is what God wants. God wants us to help people in poverty. God wants us to help those who are disadvantaged and marginalized, and that's the way that you embody a religious life. That was there from real early. But it wasn't until college where I found a faith community that fit me a little bit better, and which is Unitarian Universalism, and I became a Unitarian pastor. I became a Unitarian first, and then went to seminary a couple years later after college, and went to seminary and graduated and started serving churches. Served churches for about 10 years, and then came to Bloomington.
What I know this is a loaded question, but what separates Universalists, Unitarians from your Lutherans, your Methodists? Like, what is maybe the defining thing that separates you?
Yeah, the biggest thing is we're what's called a non-creedal covenantal faith, which is kind of fancy terms, but it means that we don't have a creed that prevents you from being a part of our community. So you can come to our faith community and you can believe based on what your conscience tells you, and the church will not say you can't be one of us because your beliefs are different. And that goes back historically to a lot of heresy related stuff where people got burned or imprisoned and things like that in our history, where we were like, well, we don't want to do that. Michael Servetus was an example. He got burned at the stake because of his beliefs. Francis David was one of our early founders, and he died in prison because of his beliefs. And so we realized that faith communities can use belief to great harm, and so we wanted to be a community that didn't that tried to step outside of that. And so covenantal, what that means, again, it's a fancy religious term, but it just means promises. And so covenants are more about what are the promises I make with you in community, and it's all about how I treat you and how you treat me, and what are our relationships and the way that we work together and treat each other. So
really just embodying the golden rule.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, and that's what we certainly try to do and try to be, and we're human just like anybody else. So that means there's strengths and weaknesses in what that organization looks like and what we do. But that's the core of our faith. Is trying to bring out the best in each of us.
Does Beacon get a lot of support from local churches?
We do, yeah. Actually, we have quite a number of churches which are real advocates and allies, and
that's great.
And it's really great, and it's especially important because we don't, as an organization, have a religious perspective that we bring forward, and that's really important for people experiencing homelessness, given that they have so many different things put upon them. To then put a religious expectation upon them also is in my opinion not right.
I agree.
And so having faith communities recognize that and still support us, I think, is pretty amazing. Knowing that what I would say is that knowing that we're doing the work of God without talking about God.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's because I've always seen that where it's just like it feels a little wrong to be like, I'm going to help you, but you need to listen to this spiel or whatever I want to tell you. Right.
And actually, if people don't believe that spiel, they can lose the shelter, like they can be kicked out. And and so we've always been like, that's our way is we want to help people with what their needs are, and it's not about what we want to give them, it's about what their needs are and what they need, and how can we support them in creating the life they need to create.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Before we shift on to places you like to go out to eat, restaurants, town, is there anything else that Beacon does that we haven't been able to highlight yet?
Well, we covered a lot of it. I mean, that was great. I just
want to make sure we didn't look back like, we didn't talk.
I think we covered most of it. I mean, we also have a street outreach program that goes out and meets people on the street, so that's probably the one thing we didn't talk too much about, but we did a good job covering a lot of it.
Well, I'm curious, can you tell me, I guess, a little bit more about street outreach? Because that seems really interesting to just kind of go, they're not coming to you, you're going to them.
Yeah, that was kind of, again, something when we had the day center for so long, and that was part of our, what I call breaking beyond the walls of the center. And we did that through housing, but we also did that through street outreach, starting to touch people's lives out and about in their communities and camps and things like that, where people are trying to reach them. We know that people who are struggling often have not been treated well in certain circumstances, and so they can have a mistrust for people who are in service provision. And so,
like, what's the catch? And
and or you've never helped me before, so why would you help me now, or kind of thing. And so so it's just another way to build relationships, create engagement, and to work with people who are often pretty severely disabled, have amazing and huge challenges, and try and help them, bring them closer to things that might help them with their lives.
That's great. Yeah. Well, especially, I mean, I could just imagine if you're in that position. Yeah. Well, plus two, I feel like inherently people don't want to ask for help.
Yeah.
So, that kind of eliminates some of that barrier.
Absolutely.
If you go to them, again, build relationship.
Yep.
Okay. Now it's like, I know Forrest is going to be there if I go there. Right. It's a more approachable.
Absolutely. That trust is huge. So it makes a big deal.
Cool.
Makes a big difference.
Amazing work. I'm glad we got to talk about it, highlight it, because it's one of, if not the largest issue in our community that constantly is talked about. And
sure is.
You hear people say insane things, and then it's, I don't know. It's just nice to talk to someone that's doing the most. Or like,
well, thanks.
Maybe not the most.
We're doing a lot, but
you're doing a ton.
And there's a lot of people doing some great work out there.
Yeah, so. And just to hear about the firsthand experience, not speculation, not rumors, not story, just like what is actually going on and what's what can other people do to help? So
Yeah.
are you in need of volunteers? Is that usually an issue? Is not
Yep.
having enough hands on deck?
Yeah, we're huge. We have like something like 1,400 volunteers a year, which
Wow.
is not enough. You
Yeah,
know, it's amazing.
geez.
So that's what I want to emphasize is that we are so volunteer reliant, and so we have about 30 staff total, and so when you look at 30 staff compared to 1,400 volunteers, that's the impact that volunteers have on the organization, both at the day center and the overnight shelter, and also over at some of our apartment complexes, working with folks over there. So,
What are some of the volunteer roles that you have available?
the most common ones are what we call our hospitality desk, or in Phil's kitchen, in our kitchen. And at Shalom Center, where people help people sign up for services. They help them do basic things like get hygiene products, get into showers, get into laundry, and just that basic kind of services, get clothing, get storage, things like that. Help see a caseworker, help them sign up for some of our housing programs, those kinds of things.
If someone has just like 2 hours available in their day, is that something like,
that's our typical shift. Yeah.
Okay. You go in and just help for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And, okay.
Yeah. Our typical shift is we generally need people to commit for a little more than one shift, but we so we have an orientation and things for people to sign up, but our typical shift is 2 hours once a week.
Wow.
And find that makes a huge difference. Just that small amount can make a big difference, particularly for people who live in their community year round, because we lose a significant portion of our volunteer crew, 4 months out of the year or so.
Really? You have most of the volunteers are students.
A lot of students. Yeah.
Wow,
that's great. It's awesome.
Yeah, well,
it's fantastic.
people always want to talk about the negatives of students in the community.
No,
but
students they do some amazing work for us. They're some awesome students doing some great jobs.
Not all 40,000 students are the ones drunk and throwing glass
exactly.
bottles. Yeah.
No dishes, man. That's right.
Yeah. Let's get rid of this bottle. All right. Well, before we let you go, we got to dive into what the Reverend likes to eat and where you like to go. And when you're able to take a break from helping others, you got to have some self-care and
you bet
take care of yourself sometimes.
Some of the so like on the day to day, I'm a big fan of comfort food. So Cloverleaf South is one of my go-tos. I love Cloverleaf, just kind of a cool, fun place to be, and just good people. And I love the waitresses there. They're awesome.
They all have a little bit of sass to them.
Oh my God, they're you great. I love them, and you get to know their lives, and they it's really, and they're just that's cool.
Do you see when we had Therese and Jessica on here?
Oh my gosh, did you really? That's so cool.
We had two. So Therese worked with me at Sweetgrass way back when. And they came on. So I don't know if you know
that's so cool.
Them, but yeah.
No, that's great.
It was fun talking Cloverleaf, getting the tea on a Cloverleaf.
Yeah.
Are you a working man's friend kind of guy? What's your go-to order at Cloverleaf?
Oh my gosh, I was there today. So Tuesday is the meatloaf special. So that's my favorite.
You're not joking about comfort food. When I think comfort food, I swear the first thing that comes to my mind is meatloaf,
right?
Meatloaf and mashed potatoes and gravy.
That's what I had. I had that and some baked beans. That was my lunch today.
Hey, that sounds like you could sign me up for that lunch. I'm sure it was only $7.99 or something.
It was pretty good. I was a little bit more.
I love that place.
Yeah, it's so great. And I'm a big fan of Henkel's hamburgers. I think some of the best burgers in town.
Well, you're gonna have a short walk there here in a couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We've talked to Richie already about what's coming, and he's like, that's great, no problem.
Yeah, what a great dude.
Yeah. So that's some of my go-tos. I'm a big fan of Taste of India too. I love their buffet. It's really good.
Really fill up for the whole day for $13.
Absolutely.
Better business, better community. For over a century, the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce has been a cornerstone of business growth and community development. They are dedicated to helping local businesses thrive. Their business is all about your business. Join the Chamber today. Call 812-336-6381 or visit chamberbloomington.org to learn more.
And then, the specialty place has got to be Yanko's. That's one of my favorite. I love their steaks and just the whole thing is really great. Usually, a friend and I go for our birthdays every year. We take each other out for our birthdays, and it's just a great great kind of meal with a good steak and a good wine and some salad, potato, and maybe some spicy meatballs or something.
There you go. So. What do you mean maybe? I know he's playing. He's like, we're doing spicy meatballs every time. Yeah. No, I have a lot of friends that work over there, and it's just such a cool crew. And I don't want to say shtick because it has like a negative connotation to it, but just like what Yonkos is. Like, it's expensive, but it's casual and it's laid back, but it's just like they execute everything really, really well.
They do.
Are you like a filet, ribeye, or New York strip guy?
Oh my gosh! So last time I got the filet. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and going all out. No regrets. I mean, jeez. I think I got the large fillet too. Like, and it's like, ooh, that's a little pricey, but it's so good.
You're going for birthdays.
But I've had the ribeye there, which is fantastic. I've had the porterhouse, with the big.
Oh man, I've been too daunted.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's great. You could take some home.
Well, I can tell you're a man of impeccable taste.
Well, those are some of my big ones, and of course for ice cream, where do you not go but chocolate mousse? That's the place.
Too kind.
No, I'm not joking. That's a no dishes kind of comment.
Yeah.
That really is that's the ice cream place go to for me.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I love to hear that.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I figured you're like, I only have 5 minutes, so it's literally the only place I have time to go. No. Well, Forrest, I can't just tell you enough. Not only thank you for coming on, but thank you for all of the work you do.
Well, thanks.
Anyone can sit back and complain or talk about this or that or say they have solutions but not act on them. So the fact that you guys are doing what you're doing, encountering probably the toughest problem, it's not easy work. I'm sure. We deal with our fair share of folks at the Moose, and it can be challenging sometimes. So
for sure.
Thank you, your whole crew, everything Beacon does. You guys are a beacon for the community.
Nice. I appreciate it. And I'll pass that on to our staff. They need that kind of emotional support and gratitude because they work so hard. Amazing team. So
cool. We'll bring them all by. We'll do an ice cream party.
Nice. Let's do it.
Thanks, Forrest.
All right. Thanks.
What another great episode. Thanks again to Visit Bloomington for being our Season 5 title sponsor. If you haven't checked them out yet, go to visitbloomington.com. This episode of the No Dishes podcast was recorded, edited, and produced by Garrett Portinga of Green Hat Media in beautiful downtown Bloomington, Indiana.
No dishes.
No Dishes Media.
No Dishes Media.